Redditors who have lived in a haunted house. What are your most unexplainable paranormal experiences? Story 1. Closest I've got to a haunted house is a haunted room. I used to sleep on the second floor, the bottom one being the first, and my sister in the attic. She used to have sleep paralysis often. Then she moved out, and now I have her old room. She no longer has sleep paralysis, but I do. I'm gonna be honest, I don't know if I'm the outlier, but everyone reports seeing like a demon figure when they have sleep paralysis. Personally, for me, when I have sleep paralysis, I don't see anything. It's just, like, I guess, am I just unlikable? Story 2. My uncle's house on a very eastern part of New York was said to be haunted due to the family that used to own it in the 1800s decided to not give it to the stableman and sold it instead. He and the maid were said to have haunted the place. We always used to joke that you would hear people or things moving at night, but since the house is so old, we used to just laugh it off. My uncle's friend had her and her sister stay over the house one night, and then the friend noticed a maid bringing towels down the stairs when she woke. She saw the maid again bring what looked like a percolator down the stairs. She was so impressed by the uncle hiring staff. He's a neurologist in New York City, so he had a bit of a habit of spending a little bit extra. She went back to bed and woke up later downstairs to see my uncle and his friend just chatting. She asked where the maid went, and she thought that the maid was cooking breakfast. My uncle had no idea what she was talking about and asked what she looked like. The sister explained, and he laughed. Walked her to the living room and pointed to an old picture. She said that was the woman. My uncle replied, yeah, she has been dead for about 100 years. I feel like I'm just kind of like the worst gaslighter because for some reason my brain needs to find like a rational reason. So like for me, if I was in the situation, if I was the uncle, I'd be like, you know what probably happened is you probably saw the painting and then it slipped in your dream and it never happened. It just felt very lifelike, almost like a lucid dream or something. God, I would be the most horrible person if there was actually like an evil spirit because I'd be like gaslighting the victim the whole time until it's too late. Story 3. I lived in a house for about 5 years that was haunted, but not in a malicious way, in a roommate kind of way. I'd come home to the windows on the second floor being open when it was raining, 2 food containers being open in the fridge that I hadn't touched yet. The worst was that the ghost hated clocks. She hated them. I had antique Cuckoo clocks that had worked for 50 years that would just stop. Brand new wall clocks that ate through batteries like it was candy. My watch ended up on the floor one morning. The crystal shattered, even though I knew I slept with it on. The one that pissed me off the most was that I got a brand new Kit Kat clock for Christmas. And the bitch threw off the wall. I was cooking, and out of my corner of my eye, saw the cat freaking fly. Turned around, it was across the kitchen. Broken. It was brand new. Man, she was a bitch. Story 4. I lived in an old haunted house in college. Things got weird that everyone moved out except for me and one roommate. Here's a few. Number 1. I woke up at 3 a.m. because my roommate door kept opening and slamming shut. From bed, I yelled for him to stop, only to realize I was the only one home that weekend. As soon as I yelled, the slamming stopped, but the hippie beads I had hanging outside my closed door began to sway perfectly, yet violently, against the door frame for half an hour, while I debated if I should pop out my air-conditioned unit and jump out the window. I laid in the fetal position in bed till it stopped. Number 2. I woke up at 3 a.m. alone again, hearing the Nintendo in the back porch playing loudly. I figured a drunk kid came in and started playing. I grabbed a bat and walked towards the back of the house as the music got louder and louder. As soon as I opened the door, it was completely quiet. Mind you, it was loud enough to wake me up. Number 3. I had friends over and told them the house was haunted. No one believed me, so I asked the ghost to do anything to prove it was there. As soon as I asked, all the lights in the house began flickering for about a minute straight. This was the middle of the day. Everyone witnessed it. Number 4. Almost everyone who stayed in my house had sleep paralysis at least once in the house. Number 5. Every time something spooky happened, the house would smell like old lady, flowery, and a strong perfume. Number 6. This house had a door built into the flooring that led to the basement. We always had a rug covering it up so no one knew it was there. Things would constantly go missing in the house and turning up in the basement. This house had a coal chute from when it was heated by coal back in the day. Missing stuff would always be placed on the chute for us to come and get. Number 7. Roommate had some issues. Once while playing video games late at night, he saw mist kind of hovering from the kitchen, then move into the bathroom. The bathroom had a trapdoor that led to the attic. That's where we figured the old lady ghost used to like to hang out. Number 8. Roommate was up late. He went to go lock the doors and turn off lights. When he turned his back on the room and walked to the door, someone breathed into his ear. Ha! He thought it was me. I was sleeping. He turned around, pissed himself, and ran to his room. He was too afraid to come out and turn off the lights and TV. Number 9. Loud thump in the attic at all hours. For peace of mind, we told ourselves squirrels must have gotten up in there. Number 10. Voices would wake us up in the middle of the night. I spent many mornings on the front porch waiting for the sun to come up before I went back in the house. And then lastly, coincidentally, I had a friend years later that rented from the same landlord. Same town, different house, where he and all of his roommates moved out because that house was also haunted. I didn't think it was too weird until he's telling me that when all that weird stuff happened, it was accompanied by an old lady, flowery, stinky perfume. Also, a lot of people have sleeper paralysis in the house as well. God damn. This kind of sounds like the plot to a very interesting, unique horror film. What if this landlord was trying to feed these ghosts, college kids? So this landlord would purposely get these haunted houses and rent them out. I don't know. I mean, honestly, now saying it out loud, that sounds like a really plot, but hey, I can dream, right? Story 5. I lived in a house that seemed to be haunted by doppelgangers. Every event that happened never involved some mysterious figure, but a known person being in a place where they should have not been. Here are a few examples. I was a teenager at the time, and I was instant messaging my girlfriend at the time with my webcam turned on. I had the viewer up so that I could see myself in the webcam. Behind me, there was the stairs leading up, left of the camera view, and the entrance to the living room, right of the camera view. My younger sister would typically fall asleep every night on the couch in front of the TV and make her way up to bed in the middle of the night. At one point in my webcam view, I saw my sister leave the living room and go up the stairs. The thing that struck me as odd was that I didn't hear anything. It was an older Victorian house, so the wooden floor and stairs were loud AF. Without saying anything to my girlfriend, I got up and looked into the living room, and there was my sister passed out on the couch. I sat back down and asked my girlfriend if she had seen anything in the camera. She said, "Yeah, I just saw your sister go upstairs." And then another detail is my family was all getting ready to go somewhere. I was sitting in the car with my mom, and we were waiting on my sister who was still in the house. After a bit, she comes out and gets in the car and just looks at me like, WTF, asked her what's wrong, and she says that just before she walked out of the house, she thought I was still inside, so she yelled up the stairs, "Hey, we're leaving." And apparently I yelled back, "Okay, I'll be down in 1 minute." And here's some more examples since you people have asked for it. My mom woke up to someone tapping her foot, and she said someone was standing at the end of her bed who faded out after a couple seconds. She said it looked like me. Secondly, there was also an encounter where I woke up and felt like someone was under my covers laying up against me. When I said something, my blanket visibly deflated. I no longer felt anything. I include this with doppelgangers because though they didn't see why I felt under the blanket, it laid like my girlfriend would have laid against me. And then lastly, when I was 22, I was in the military and I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. It still took like a year after diagnosis to separate from the military, but I went home on leave for the holidays about a month after the diagnosis. Anyone that has insulin-dependent diabetes typically carries around some sort of kit. Mine is a black zip-up pouch, and it has a glucometer, insulin pen, needles, and alcohol pads. Right after I left home to head back from leave, my mom texts me and asks if I'm missing my diabetic kit. I look, and I'm not. She sends me a picture of a diabetic kit and asks if I know it. I've never seen this kit before in my life. Apparently, my sister went to her bedroom and discovered it outside of her window, propped up like someone had set it there. Oh, also, her bedroom is on the second floor. Nobody else we know has diabetes. Story 6. When I was around 9 to 10 years old, I remember waking up to a large shadow that stood at the front of my bed. I was living with my dad at the time. He has a very large 5-floor terrace house built in the 1800s. Every so often, there would be an unexplainable event happen, such as footsteps where there's no one there or voices. On the night this happened, it was just my dad and I in the house. My sister was staying with my mom at the time. I woke up and noticed the door to my room was wide open. I normally sleep with it closed. I then became aware of a large, around 7-foot tall shadow-like figure watching me from the end of the bed. When the figure noticed me, it seemed to melt into the floor and the door to my room slammed shut. Understandably, I was slightly traumatized by the whole experience. I asked my dad the next day if he was in my room and he denied any knowledge of the event. He's not the type of person that likes jokes. God damn, a 7-foot man? Was Slender Man in your shit? Listen, I'm not gonna lie, I think size really does make a big difference when it comes to these spirits. If I saw like a 3-foot ghost, I'm beating that up. I'm gonna put my ghost gloves on, I'm beat the fuck out of that. Story 7. There's a post about this somewhere on Reddit that I wrote before, but I'm too lazy to take it up. My husband and I own a martial arts school, and the building that it's in, which we also own, is about 130 years old, next to a church. And I never, and still don't really, there has to be another explanation, believe in paranormal. But the things that happened in it just didn't happen to me. It was decrepit, which is why it was so cheap to purchase. We basically did all the work ourselves. Old, creaky, and drafty. A steel knob and tube that we had to get an electrician to change out. So here's a bunch of things that happened. Number 1. When we'd be working with drills and electric saws, I'd hear the tinkling of a music box, and I'd stop everyone to ask if they hear it too. No one else did, so I assumed it must have been some music from the church coming through. Number 2. My husband would often hear a woman's voice calling his name from the bottom of the stairs. It's 2 floors, a basement, and a loft. And, thinking it was me back from work, would always ask it to come up. Turns out the building was empty. Happened 4 or 5 times. Number 3. One night, there's a small apartment on the 2nd floor connected to a large hall. We woke up hearing what sounded like a broom sweeping across the wooden floors in the large hall. My husband got up to check, but once he would walk in there, the sweeping sound would stop. It happened 3 more times that night. We chalked it up to mice or squirrels. We did find mummified squirrels in the attic once. Number 4. We had a barbecue in the backyard and I needed to go get some more utensils. There's a metal stairwell from the backyard up to the 2nd floor. And then there's the main entrance staircase opposite to that. I came up the main entrance and heard footsteps pacing back and forth across the far end of the hall and thought my husband came up from the metal stairwell to get utensils with me. It was dark and I couldn't see anything. I called out for him and the pacing stopped. No response, and then the pacing footsteps continued. Annoyed, I thought he was messing with me, so I flipped on the lights and all of the utensils from the shelf where I heard the pacing crash down to the floor. Like I spooked something. But there wasn't anything, not even a rat, like I thought there might be. Number 5. One Saturday morning, my husband was on his computer in another room. I'm in the apartment playing with a Tamagotchi app on my iPad when I heard the stereo sitting in front of me click on and a girl's voice started talking from it. I thought he controlled the stereo from his computer, so I ignored it because he often puts on music to work out before class started. He teaches the morning class. I do remember thinking, what kind of weird indie music is he listening to anyway? Because the voice just said, "Hi, my name is..." I thought I heard Katie, but I'm not 100% sure because I wasn't paying attention. I've never known a Katie in my life. I am years old. I'm from, etc. I didn't catch the specifics because I wasn't really listening, but that went on for about 2 or 3 minutes until it suddenly went, "Something's hurting me." And when I caught that, I looked up and squinted at the stereo, like, what? Something killed me. At this point, the hair is standing on the back of my neck, and I'm getting up from the couch to take a closer look. Someone tell my parents, tell the teachers, tell the correction officer. At the word, corrections officer, I just pull into the other room and start yelling at my husband, cursing him out because I was certain he was playing a trick on me. Told him, we don't f***ing play jokes about dead people. And he's of course looking at me like, WTF? When he finally calms me down long enough to get what I heard out of me and what I was accusing him of, he told me it was impossible and led me to the stereo. It's not plugged in. I thought maybe the stereo picked up the signals from an ebook or something. So after that last fiasco, I went to ask our live-in student who lived with his girlfriend in the basement apartment of the building if anything weird is happening. They shot each other an alarmed look and told me this. Their first story was his girlfriend was sleeping one night when he was working overnight and she heard footsteps come down the stairs and their door open and then close. All of a sudden, a bright flashlight shines in her face and she can just make out a silhouette of who she thought was her boyfriend because he's tall. And she can see the dirty jeans he's wearing. She's annoyed, thinking he's messing with her, so she's swatting at him and telling him to stop. Finally, she gets pissed off, she rolls, turns on their lamp, and there's no one there. Number 2, they sometimes hear footsteps on the first floor when there's no one in the building. They had a pet mouse at the time, and whenever that happened, it would start doing backflips in its tank. However, when class is going on and there are people in the building, the mouse didn't care and just went about its mousy business. Story 3. They were play wrestling one day when suddenly their African gray parrot ruffled its feathers and in a really alarmed voice asked, "Who's there? Who's there?" They thought it was funny at first, so our student looked at the bird and pointed to the door and said, "You mean over here?" and ran towards the door to open it. As he did that, all the books that were lining the shelf on the way to the door fell over in front of him and the light started flickering. The bird and the mouse both got spooked and were throwing themselves against their cages. And then on to the next. Our second live-in student after the first one got married to his girlfriend, got their own home, had a baby. Several times could just not find his phone when he woke up in the morning when he had placed it next to his bed the night before. He would search his room high and low and then he'd find it perfectly placed right outside his locked bedroom door on the floor. I thought he might have been sleepwalking, but his girlfriend says she'd realize it if he did since she's a very light sleeper. So don't know what that's about. Nothing notable has happened since then, but we also have not had anyone stay there overnight in years. Story 8. When I was younger, I used to take naps upstairs, but by the time I was 8 years old, I absolutely refused to go upstairs. The upstairs had 2 large closets, attics. They ran from one side of the upstairs all the way to the other side on both sides. It was essentially a crawl space that was maybe 30 feet long. It started one day when a friend and I went crawling from one side to the other with flashlights like kids normally do. Then I saw a girl sitting there in the corner acting like she wanted to play with us. I know a lot of people say when they see a ghost, they aren't scared, just interested haunted? Nope. I was beyond terrified. This girl looked normal, had blonde hair, a nice dress, and seemed friendly. I stayed silent, kept crawling behind my friend, and got out of the closet. Told him what I saw in there. He said he didn't see it, but felt like he didn't want to go back in. Then my parents would occasionally send me upstairs to get something, and when I would get up there, I would see the door swing open, as if they were trying to get me to come inside. I would lose toys and wouldn't be able to find them anywhere. Suddenly, my parents would be fishing out Christmas presents out of the attic, and we would find some toys in there. I remember being 8 years old, my parents are asleep, still in the morning, and I leashed up my dog to go take on the monster in the attic. My dog, usually up for anything, refused to go for the top step into the attic. My parents never blamed me with all the weird things that happened in that house. I'd get blamed for things that happened all over the house, leaving lights on, toys all over, things I knew I didn't do. Well, anyway, we moved out of there when I was 10. Now a week passes before the new owners call us up and ask if the house is haunted. Their daughter sleeps upstairs. She says that she has been playing with a blonde girl at night. My parents laughed at how crazy these new homers must be. To make an already long story short, the girl started appearing in other parts of the house for them. They kept in contact with us. They would look over while watching TV and see the girl sitting on their daughter's lap, etc. They looked up on the computer the past owners of the house, found an old dressmaker that lived there, and yep, a picture of the little girl wearing one of the lady's dresses. The family that moved in there were absolutely torn apart by the events. Got divorced, dad stayed living in the house, and ended up taking his own life in that house. Have you guys ever noticed when people see a ghost, like nothing happens? Like no one ever says like, oh yeah, the ghost, ambushed me and just beat me to a pulp. Like that never happens. It's just they see a ghost and they're just terrified and nothing ever happens. Does this just kind of imply that, hey, maybe ghosts aren't as bad as we think? Like we really think about it, they just seem like nuisances, if anything. They don't really seem like they're villains, Story 9. I used to live in an old, big 5-bedroom house with 6 other people. My significant other and I shared one of the rooms. I saw a stranger in my room when I was in my 20s. It wasn't exactly visible, but I somewhat knew it was right there in the corner of my room. My significant other was next to me sleeping. While I had my eyes open, I knew it was there. So I closed my eyes, I tried to wish it away, I opened my eyes, and it was now next to the bed, looking at me. I closed my eyes again, and suddenly, relief came. I opened my eyes, nothing there. I saw it once again at the stairs. It was only a brief moment this time, and then it was gone. Story 10. I live in a house built in the 1800s. It survived the 2 world wars, and it's seen some crap, I imagine. One of the previous owners had 2 sons who both unalived. A lot of strange stuff has happened. The animals, dogs and parrots will wake up from their naps and follow something with their heads, just as they would follow me if I were to walk around. Also, before I switched rooms in the house, my brother had a room and he refused to sleep there as he would hear voices. He slept with my parents. He was a child until the day he got my old room, and since then has slept in that room without problems. There's also a whole floor we don't use, and I sleep in the attic, and I pass through that floor to get to my attic. Weird explanation, but it's a weird house, and I have a motion activated light there that goes on as I'm walking the stairs to that unused floor. It would also switch on in the middle of the night while nobody's walking under the motion detector. Also, there's cold spots. Story 11. In 2012, my stepfather overdosed on heroin and dropped dead in the hallway in his condo apartment. My mom had to move out shortly after since they were already behind on mortgage bills. A few months later, my lease went up and I was barely making ends meet and couldn't find a new roommate. My mom offered me the key to the condo apartment to squat for a few months until I saved up enough for my own apartment. I took the offer and moved into the condo apartment. After a month or so, I was asleep in the living room and I had this dream of him standing in the hallway facing the living room. He was looking at me and smiling and laughing. Even made a stupid joke and everything. It wasn't disturbing at all, just bittersweet. Then I suddenly woke when I felt some pressure stroking down my head and back. There was nothing around me, and it tripped the hell out of me. As a skeptical person that doesn't believe in the paranormal, it has to be some kind of sensory hallucination. It was still nice to see him in my dream, once again though. Made me tear up typing this. Story 12. I lived in one when I was a teen, along with my parents. Several instances come to mind. We were remodeling an old farmhouse and had been there a couple of months before witnessing anything. One day, I was underneath my truck, which was supported by only a jack. Stupid, I know. I was in the middle working on it with no good reason to get out at that moment. Suddenly, the overwhelming urge to get out from underneath overwhelmed me. No sooner than I got out, the truck fell to the ground. The jack had slipped. Freaked Dad out. He thought I was under it. When my mom got home, we mentioned it, and she started crying, sobbing pretty hard. It turns out the previous owner died in the driveway under a vehicle in that spot. I would often see moving shadows and strangely hear music from the upstairs area. The windows of the old house were cocked shut, and blackbirds would often get caught between the panes. We ended up replacing all the windows, but we had to break 3 inside panes to get them out. One of the more disturbing things happened when my mother was cooking breakfast. She turned away to get something out of the cabinet, and when she turned back, all the forks set out were bent straight up. Alright, so just me, like, that ghost just sounded like a menace. That ghost was definitely, like, fucking bitter. You're like, damn, if I'm gonna get killed from my vehicle, someone else is gonna suffer the same exact fate I did. It goes as petty as hell. Shit. Story 13. My father-in-law died before my son was born, so he never met him. When we moved into our new home, my son would often be laughing in the middle of the night by himself. No biggie, kids will play with anything. One day, we were finally putting pictures up in the house, and once I put the picture up of my father-in-law, he said, "Oh, mommy, why do you have a picture of the man that comes and plays with me at night?" He had never seen a picture of my father-in-law before.